to the cloud. Hello, this is Allison Ewald, one of the facilitators of the Gaia Education Design for Sustainability Social Dimension. And this is our fifth live call due to a scheduling conflict. The call is being hosted by me personally rather than the Gaia Education host. And we'll probably have another video posted after this one due to the conflict. So I'm here, and as other people join, we will get into more dialogue about Module 5 and about the social dimension as a whole. So let's start with questions about Module 5. Want to go ahead and ask your question, Julia?
I don't need to unmute. Unmute. Okay. Yeah, it had to do with the guidelines for developing bioregional sensibility and a cosmopolitan bioregionalism.
Right.
There was two on there that I'm not clear what they meant, and it had to do with navigate the foggy fractal coastline and move within and without. I'm really not clear on what either of those is.
Right. Okay, great. Thanks for that question. This is a particularly complicated part of the ebook. So for folks who want to follow along and find what we're talking about, this is in Module 5, Section 2, Bioregionalism, the part that begins with a quote by Gary Snyder about bioregional awareness. And if you scroll down on that page below what is bioregionalism and what is a bioregion, you will find a section called Guidelines for Developing Bioregional Sensibility and a Cosmopolitan Bioregionalism. This is from Mitchell Tomashow, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. So Mitchell uses these subjects like study the language of the birds and navigate the coastline, and when we read them, we think, oh, he's talking about the literal language of the birds and the literal coastline. But no, Mitchell is evidently talking about more metaphorical understandings of these things. So navigate the foggy fractal coastline. Shall I just read that section first so that we are all looking at the same thing, you think?
Probably.
So it says, understand that different scales may yield contrasting observations and that different people will have various interpretations. Avoid the illusion of contrived stability. Local knowledge requires practitioner-based science and place-based wisdom, and cadres of bioregional investigators who catalog the dynamics of local environmental change in their home communities, who compare notes with their colleagues, and who chart a steady course in the midst of complex, turbulent change. So what I understand that to mean is that just like a coastline is foggy in the sense of being hard to see sometimes, and fractal in the sense that we can look at it from the height of an airplane, or we can look at it, from, on the individual wave level, or even the microscopic level. Understanding our network requires that we look at our network on different scales. So when we're building our network, the way I understand this part is that things are always changing. I can't go into a place and think that I know it. I need to listen to those who live in a place, all the beings that are in a place. I need to look at every individual. I need to look at it on different levels. So from the health of the actual literal leaves and the literal soil to the health of the human networks that are going on, the economic health. Yeah, so I think what this means is that things are always changing, communities are very complex, and we need to listen to those who are experts in the sense that it's their place. They have developed the wisdom of that place over time. So that's how I understand that one.
So that kind of goes back to our individual homework assignment, where
Right.
you're speaking to somebody who's been around in that area for a long time.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's the place-based wisdom and the bioregional investigators. They may
Okay.
not think of themselves as a bioregional investigator, but if they're living there with their eyes and ears open, they just become one through virtue of that. Does that make sense now?
Yeah. Um,
Okay. So the other one, move within without, says trace the ecological and economic pathways of everyday commodities to fully understand the impact of globalization, both its benefits and threats. Consider the full matrix of citizenship and all the ways that speech, intentions, motivations, and actions contribute to the formation of bioregional sensibility. So I think that this is about looking at the impacts of globalization on the everyday things that we hold in our hands and work with, and how those everyday things impact people and beings outside of our location. So basically looking at the flow, I understand this one to be about the flow of the ecology and the economic interactions that go on within and between. It's sort of like looking at the intra and inter layers and social layers of all of the things that we say and do. It's kind of huge. It's kind of like, look at everything and the relationships of everything to everything else. I think this is related to like how we might look at the label on the sweater that we're putting on and remind ourselves that we are related to the people that made that sweater when we purchase it, you know, and to look at the impacts of purchasing a sweater that was made in Indonesia, for example, rather than from our neighbor who knitted it herself or something.
okay, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Um, Back to the other one, the navigating the
Yeah.
coastline. The so I was I was talking to my mom, who's been lived in this area for 65 years, and she had there was a lot of eucalyptus trees in this
Mm-hmm.
area.
Mm,
Um, but the thing is, they're not native
mm,
here. They were brought to San Diego um, for railroad ties, which didn't work out because they were too brittle.
huh.
But and so they catch fire and they combust pretty easily because there's so much oil in them.
Right.
So they've been tearing down a lot of the eucalyptus trees,
Wow.
and so so my memory, because I'm older, I've been in this area for a while, is there was a lot of eucalyptus trees, but that is not it's not a native thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's even if you go back 50 years, it's still not far enough in the area
Mm-hmm.
I'm in now, which is
Yeah.
just interesting.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. The eco village where I live, one of the local communities is called Dancing Rabbit Eco Village, and when I was involved in some of the fairly early, the first decade of Dancing Rabbit's formation, and there were endless dialogues about permaculture versus conservation biology, where the permaculturists would say like, oh, this plant is edible and it grows well in this climate, let's use it and eat it and feed it to our animals. And the conservation biologists would say, but it's not native, it was brought here by Europeans, so we should eradicate it because it threatens the native species. And it's a very interesting dialogue because there are some plants that are replacing the native species that were here, so that were here earlier. But then if we say, what does native mean? How far back do we go to determine what's native? Do we look at when the European Columbians came to North America, or do we look earlier to when people came across the land bridge into Alaska, present day Alaska from present day Russia? There's so many interactions that have happened in North America, in South America, also many interactions, and it's hard to pinpoint. I'm not even sure it's beneficial to pinpoint a place and time when we can call something native, because what does that mean? Is native something that was here in 1300, in 500 AD, or 1000 BC? Like when does native begin? And with the eucalyptus trees, it can be very helpful to know, oh, these, I think of them as defining this place, but they didn't even exist here 200 years ago. If we're trying to understand, like, how did this place naturally develop without a ton of human impact? But if we're looking at it through the lens of like, well, now that we're here and we have these trees, what is the best use that we can put to them? That's a different question, you know? And I think with bioregionalism, what we might look at is, in this bioregion, if we have eucalyptus trees, or if we have garlic mustard, which is the plant I was talking about here in Missouri, what is the best way to support its existence and our interexistence? Is it to tear it up? Is it to eat it? Is it to propagate it? You know, what about nettles? What about tomatoes? Is it okay to keep planting these things? What about potatoes? Those were brought from the New World to the Old World. Is it okay that they're now all over Europe? You know, like, there's all of these questions about native and non-native that might not have as much meaning as whether something is currently harmful or not, which is a very hard question to answer. I think I might have gone beyond your question, but I'm fascinated by this topic.
Yeah, because it seems to, I mean, in San Diego, we don't have as much rain. And so everybody wants to put in native species and everything, which pretty much looks like the desert. Yeah. But we're not taking care of our soil first. And I'm like, well, it isn't native whatever can grow there, you know? And so I'm going, if we repair our soils, then we'll be able to grow all this stuff, and then it'll be native. So that's why I have a problem with that whole native thing.
Yeah.
You're right. You know, thousands of years ago, we could have been growing everything here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, interesting.
Right. So. I keep hearing these little bells ringing. Like, I thought someone was joining the call, but I don't see anyone.
I saw something from Christopher come through on the forum.
Oh, I see. Okay. Let me look back there and see if I can see it. Social dimension. Just open that in another tab. Okay, I don't see another thing in the general discussion forum. Well, okay. Oh, he sent me a message saying he keeps getting kicked out of the session. So let me just post the info there. Maybe he'll get that message. Really is quite unfortunate that this happened. I think it was a function of time zone confusion. Do you have another question about the module or about the course? Oh, let me unmute you.
I think that's all for now. That was the main part of it that I was trying to understand.
Okay. Okay. Well, as you know, today is the final day for getting things complete on Module 5. And the social dimension continues for the rest of this week for people who are still finishing up their work on previous modules, or who want to discuss things in the forum about Module 5 or the other modules. So, you know, even after the deadline today, if you want to go back and you know, continue conversations that are happening in the forum or in the other modules assignments, you're welcome to do that. I think that the course will be open for another couple of weeks after Friday is done so that people can continue looking at each other's work. And if anyone needs extensions, as usual, they can contact me or Deborah. Yeah, I think I will stay on for another 15 minutes in case other people want to join the call. Do you want to chat about how things have been for you on the course as a whole?
Sure. This is actually my last course. I started with the ecological one, and I'm
Yeah.
finishing with this one. And I stumbled across this course at the right time, and it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it. Some of them have been challenging for me.
Uh-huh.
Because it's a world I wasn't necessarily used to, but I learned so much from all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I'm kind of bummed that this is the last one.
Yeah.
And, this, I would be interested in doing some more eco-village training stuff, but I didn't see anything else other than like 5-week courses that are at a place, which isn't going to work for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would really be interested if Gaia ended up putting together more stuff on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but yeah.
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 So when you say 5-week courses in a place, do you mean when this course is run as a 5-week intensive where people all stay in one location and go through the program together?
Yeah.
Yeah. So would it work if there were one in San Diego?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But then I might be having to host it if I get my act together.
I was thinking along those lines that perhaps you could use the networking part of networking module to expand your network and possibly find co-hosts and others who are interested in it. I know that there have been courses in the United States before. We co-hosted one here at Dancing Rabbit several years ago. And there was one in New Mexico a few years before that in the early 2000s. And so you're on track to become a host of a live course. And I know that there are people in California who would love to help present on that. Yeah. So possibly others who are in this course who live nearby could even come and participate as well.
Yeah, it would be fun to do something like that. So
yeah, that would
not
be
ready yet, but
That would be exciting.
Yeah. So I haven't been to any other eco villages, and so I mean, I have my own ideas on the way they should be, but it would kind of be nice to be exposed to a few.
Sure. Are you familiar with the ic.org directory of eco villages?
I think it was icy.
The letter I, letter C.org. It's the website of the Fellowship for Intentional Community, and they have a very extensive directory of communities, not just eco-villages. They have co-housing communities, student co-ops, all different kinds of communities listed on there. You can search geographically, you can search by whether they're accepting new members and things like that. It's best for United States communities, but it does have some in other countries listed as well. It just depends on which communities have chosen to go onto the site and list themselves.
Yeah, it used to be a big pink book, I remember, a long time ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They used to print it out every few years. They would expand it and go and travel and visit communities and update the information. And now they just make it available for free online, which I think is great. And they're actually updating it right now. They have a capital campaign running to improve the online search engine, but I think it's pretty good already. So you could probably find some communities near you to visit and expand your network and your understanding that way.
Yeah.
Highly recommend visiting a number of communities to see the range of how people have answered these questions in a real actual place, with real living beings to interact with. And
right. Yeah. Well, Finhorn and Tamara are the two I've been wanting to get to. So, yeah.
Tamara is in Portugal, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about that community.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
anyway.
Yeah. Well, I've certainly enjoyed facilitating this. It was fun while I was traveling the last few weeks to touch base with people through the program by jumping into the forums and doing some marking while I was traveling, reading people's reflections, because I'm usually very place-based. I'm here in Missouri in the United States. I know the seasons here very well after being here for so many years. And it was kind of a jolt to my system to be in completely different bioregions with completely different networks. And I used to live abroad in my 20s. I lived for most of my 20s. I lived overseas in Russia and Ukraine and Hungary. And so it was very common then to jump around and move among different cultures, but I haven't done that in a long time. So it was interesting to be facilitating this program while moving from place to place. I felt in some ways more curious about the local environment and local people than I do at home. I think at home I tend to not be as curious because I think that I know things, which of course is a great barrier to learning.
Right.
But I also found that I felt less connected while I was traveling with the places where I was, partly I think just because of my lack of understanding and lack of knowledge. So it was an interesting combination of like more curiosity, more openness to learning, but also like a sense of disconnection because of a lack of understanding. So yeah, it made me relate to the course in a new way due to that. And I know that there are a number of students who, as in past years, are moving from one country to another or one region to another, for whom the fifth module is pretty challenging because they're like, oh, do I write about my homeland in Brazil or do I write about my network in England where I'm living now? Or one of the students now on the course moved from one Greek island to another and is building a whole new network there. So yeah, I guess I'm just noticing some compassion with those of you who are maybe in transition in terms of your bioregions and opportunities that can present.
Not me. I've been here my whole life, so it's
Uh,
I know this area really well.
yeah, which is a great gift that you bring to it and that it brings to you.
Yeah, but I've seen a lot of changes in the last 50 years. Not necessarily good. So,
Uh-huh.
but well.
Yeah.
So I'm taking a permaculture course. So I'm looking forward to that to learn all that kind of stuff.
That'll be interesting, the intersection of permaculture with the work that you've done on this course. I'm sure you'll find a lot of overlap.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting, and the mapping techniques, and I'm trying to understand the software, and it's like, oh my God, whole new language there.
Yeah. Be warned, because sometimes permaculture teachers don't put much emphasis on social permaculture. They tend to look at more the ecological and to some extent the economic aspects of permaculture design. But I think it can be very interesting, coming off the social dimension for you in particular, to apply some of the things from this course to the permaculture principles. So when I took my permaculture course here last summer, my project was a social design. It was designing an elder co-housing community within an existing building. And so we looked at the economics of it, the social interactions with the wider community and with the business that was located in the building, and applied the permaculture principles to the social design of the community, the sub community of the eco-village. So so you might look at that while you're on the course. How do these, observe and interact, or the different principles in the permaculture course, how can I apply them socially to interactions among humans and between humans and their environment?
So by that, I'm trying to understand what you mean by that. So can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So when people are taking a permaculture course, they often think, oh, this means observe and interact with the soil and the plants that grow here, and design from design from patterns to details means I should look at the wider landscape and the patterns on it of water and wind flow and everything before I decide which way my house should face, for example. That's sort of the literal interpretation of the principles. And what I'm encouraging you to do is to, as well as those literal interpretations, to bring your understanding of social interactions to the principles as well. So observe and interact might mean like, oh, how is the social network already set up here? Like, who's on the margin? Who's at the center of decision making? Do they have enough support for good facilitation? And design from patterns to details might mean like, oh, as we set up our course together, let's look at how are we raising our hands to ask questions? How are we interacting with each other on this course as a whole? And what are our goals together as a whole? And then once we have figured out our goals together, how can we best accomplish those in terms of the specific ways we interact? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So taking those same principles and applying them to the social, the design of the social group that you're working with, whether it's the group taking the course with you or an actual, community that you're building.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Cool.
There's whole books out there on social permaculture. It's a juicy field.
I'll have to look that up. Yeah. Social permaculture. Okay.
Yeah. Not just agriculture anymore.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's 2 minutes to the hour.
I don't think anybody else is going to make it.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think I will stop the recording and just say thanks for being here. And to anyone who chooses to watch the recording, I hope that you found it useful.
Yes,
and,
I did.
Good. And I wish you an enjoyable time completing the course. And we will also reschedule this call for another time, hopefully when people can make it and when Gaia Education doesn't already have another call going on.
All right. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.